Betty was a summa cum laude graduate of the all-female university, of course, Smith College, and she earned a degree in psychology. After graduation, as was expected of her, Betty got married, and for 9 years she took very good care of her husband, while working full-time as a successful and award-winning journalist. But then one day Betty got fired from the job she did so well because she was pregnant, and she was sent home to live the socially acceptable life of a 1960s housewife. But Betty had a hard time parlaying a clean house and well-behaved children into a reason to live. Sorry. I tried to commit this to memory, but since menopause is no longer coming.
I went to there.
Betty lamented the lack of role models for women who wanted to work and raise a family, and was very discouraged by what she considered to be the plight of the modern woman. Now, her book, The Feminine Mystique, marked the first time in the history of humanity that a woman ever dared to ask out loud, "Is this all there is?" How many feel that way today? And like any other struggle to change a socially accepted norm, all it took was for one person to have the courage to say out loud what everyone else was thinking in silence. Women across North America were thrilled and relieved to discover that what they were thinking in their deepest, innermost, secret personal thoughts were not strange or mutinous, and they began to talk among themselves about what women really wanted out of life. And the feminist movement was born. The principles of feminism were pretty straightforward. All women really wanted was the political, social, and economic equality of the sexes. And like the suffragettes who went before them and fought a 70-year-long battle just to earn the right for women to vote, these women got organized. Just 3 years after Betty published The Feminine Mystique, she founded NOW, the National Organization for Women, a powerful lobby group that began putting pressure on governments and the courts to allow women to successfully participate in society. And then in 1972, the year my confused friends and I were at Nate Rivers picking out our training bras, Gloria Steinem launched Ms. Magazine, the very first periodical aimed directly at women that contained anything but fashion advice and recipes. Ms. Magazine offered essays on the importance of equality for women, articles on women's health issues, and also political essays, which encouraged women to become aware of and involved in legislation that affected them directly. And it worked. In just 3 days, Ms. Magazine sold out its 300,000 copy first issue. And later that summer in the US presidential election, Gloria Steinem debuted her lobby group, the National Political Caucus of Women, who fought desperately for equal pay for equal work, equal opportunity within the workforce, and reproductive freedom for women. Now, at the same time that public policy was changing, so was public opinion. Female comedians were packing nightclubs with audiences who were hipper and more urbane and were open to a new dialogue. The traditional mother-in-law jokes were being replaced by thoughtful monologues that outlined the new roles that women were playing in society. Phyllis Diller opined that what women really want out of life is men, careers, money, children, friends, luxury, comfort, independence, freedom, respect, love, and $3 pantyhose that don't run.
Amen.
I think that's what we all want. We were reminded by our fellow females that Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did, but she did it backwards and in high heels. We were lectured that a truly liberated woman has sex before marriage and a job after. We were asked if they could put a man on the moon, why can't they put them all there? Sorry guys, you're so brave. Kyle, you know I say this with love, right? I can still remember the first feminist joke I ever heard. Scientists have discovered something that does the work of 100 Russian men, 50 Russian women. If it was a confusing time to be a girl, it must really suck to be a boy. I'm ashamed to admit that my friends and I would absolutely torture our male classmates every Friday night while we were cruising around North Bay. We would call the DJ on CFCH and request that he play Helen Reddy's I Am Woman back to back with Leslie Gore's You Don't Own Me. And I'm not sure if it's relevant or not, but around that time, CFCH did experience a dramatic drop in listenership of their 18 to 29 male demographic. And every Saturday morning, the electronics stores just sold out of 8-track tape players. An entire generation of girls, empowered by this new dialogue, began practicing in earnest what the generation before them was preaching. Droves of young women began entering university to successfully study medicine, law, pharmacy, architecture, engineering, and every other heretofore male-dominated discipline. They endured unbelievable mental and emotional abuse from their less evolved male classmates, suspicion and derision from their less enlightened female colleagues, and very often had to work twice as hard just to be considered half as good. But they did it. Today, the woman in uniform at the front of the plane is just as likely to be the pilot as the flight attendant. You never hear anyone younger than your grandparents use the term lady dentist. And thanks to a couple of decades of androgynous baby names, many employers don't even know the gender of the applicant until the interview. And just this year, the United Kingdom, hardly the most gender-aware culture on earth, despite the fact that for 60 years their head of state's been a woman. This government finally amended a law that's been on the books since the 1700s that now allows the oldest child, not the oldest male child of the reigning monarch, to ascend to the throne. So we have indeed come a long way, baby, but we're not quite there yet. The people of this country have put a woman in the PMO, albeit for an hour and a half. And both Canada College and Nipissing University have been ably served by women presidents. But we have not elected a woman Premier of Ontario, and this town has not put a woman in the mayor's chair yet. And schools are still struggling to engage female students in math and science. Unfortunately, the stereotype still endures that smart girls just don't get boyfriends. Sadly, this is a stereotype that was perpetuated by Joan Rivers, who declares that no man ever put his hand up a woman's dress hoping to find a library card. And the fact that no teenage boy has ever decorated his locker with a pin-up of Madeleine Albright. And there's still major issues around daycare for working mothers, and the trouble that some women have, where's my word? I hate being 50-something. Pardon me. And the trouble that some women have transitioning back into the workforce after maternity leave. There's still issues of pay equity between men and women, and surprisingly, even pay inequities amongst women. I was absolutely astounded to discover in the last census that women without children can earn up to 30% more than women with children. We need to do something about that. But there is no denying that women today have a lot more freedom than the women did 50 years ago. The freedom to study the subject of their choice, the freedom to choose marriage or career or both, and the freedom to chart their own destinies. Today, women still choose to become nurses, thank goodness, but they're also free to choose to become doctors. Women are still teaching, but they are also writing the educational curriculum. Women are still employed as executive assistants, but today they're also free to become executives. Now, unfortunately, because of a precarious economy, very few women have the freedom to choose to be stay-at-home moms or full-time housewives. And the few that do have that choice are often looked down upon from women who do choose careers. And we have to do something about that. The whole point of the women's liberation movement was to ensure that women women had a choice. So we need to do more and work harder to stop the polarization of women from within our own ranks. One of the biggest mistakes the feminist movement made was to assume that just because we all have the same genitalia that we're all going to think alike, and nothing can be further from the truth. One of the best examples of this is what happened during the last US presidential election. Women on the left were almost militantly supportive of Hillary Clinton, while Sarah Palin was shamelessly worshipped by women on the right. Someone has to do something to bridge the gap between those two factions. And that's where all of you come in. If you are over 50 years old, you can be very proud of putting us on the right path. If you are under 50 years old, the next leg of this journey belongs to you. If you see an injustice, do something about it. If something chaps your backside, talk about it. You'll be amazed at how many people are thinking exactly the same thing you are. They're just waiting for one person with the guts to say it first. And most importantly, call upon the experience of those who've already fought the good fight. The women who went before you are fountains of knowledge and wisdom and have a lot of really good ideas that will help make your struggle that much simpler. Just do not ask us to join you on the march. Most of us are far too busy awaiting hip and knee replacement surgery. I congratulate you all on your marvelous accomplishments. I urge you all to keep up the good fight, and I thank you so very, very much for having me today.